Typically, when a month has 5 Wednesdays, we get very few comic books for the last week. However, this is very different. Some of the biggest and best comic books coming out in May are happening right this Wednesday. I'm Stan, and this is Detail Comics. What's up, everybody? This is Preview Picks, the show where I go over the comic books coming out on Wednesday, giving you an idea what they're all about, and whether there's something you should talk to your comic book shop about. Make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single Monday. The first book that I want to talk about is X-Men Blue number 28, which is concluding a storyline where Magneto has been running a group of X-Men, originally the OG X-Men and now a group run by Polaris, out of Madripoor. So this is a storyline that's going to be concluding now before we kind of dive into a lot of stuff that's going to be happening with the X-Men over the next few months. I'm not really sure where Colin Bunn's going to be taking this, but overall it's been a really refreshing case. I haven't been paying too much attention to X-Men Blue, but it's one that's kind of caught my interest, and I'm interested to see where this goes since it's going to be shaping the brand new lineup for Blue coming soon. Heading over to DC, we have Green Arrow Annual number 2. So this is the first issue written by Julie and Shauna Benson, who are going to be taking over the creative controls of the character in the future. So this is dealing with Oliver Queen versus Amanda Waller, and if you read Justice League No Justice, you actually see exactly why this is a pretty big issue. So it's one that, even though I have fallen off the Green Arrow series, it's one that I'm going to be picking it up. Making our way back over to Marvel, we have Punisher number 225, which continues to deal with Frank Castle and the War Machine armor. So he's returning back to the United States. There's a lot of different things, and it looks like he's going to be coming into conflict with the superhero community that isn't necessarily up on exactly what he's doing with the War Machine armor. They're not necessarily big fans of the work that he's done. We already know that Matthew Rosenberg and Frank Castle's Punisher is getting a new number 1 inside August, so this is just going to be wrapping up the storyline, taking away the armor from him, and getting him back to that kind of street-level urban vigilantism that we love and know from the Punisher. So it's one of those things where if you're looking for the conclusion of this War Machine story arc, this is the beginning of the end. Then over at Archie Comics, I've got something I've been waiting for personally, and that's Vampironica number 2. So Greg and Meg Smallwood have done a fantastic job on issue number 1, and they weren't necessarily anticipating the kind of reaction that they got. So it took some time to get issue number 2 out, but gladly it's going to be hitting shelves this week, and I'm excited to pick it up. I did a review of issue number 1, so you guys can check that out as well, and it's something that's a little bit campy, it's a little bit fun, and it definitely breathes a little bit of new life or undeath into the Archie universe. So it's one that I'm a fan of, and of course, I love Greg Smallwood's art, so it's something that I'm going to be picking up. Another one at Marvel I'm going to be grabbing is Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 19, which is written by Jody Houser, and this is going to be taking into account like some time with Wolverine. So we've had some really kind of off-kilter storylines from Jody Houser regarding the young Annie Parker. So she's got her superhero kind of identity, she's got her kind of like quadri of friends that aren't necessarily there anymore, they only had limited powers. So now they're going to be dealing with a lot of other different stuff. It's really dealing with this kind of teenage angst-parent relationship, which is, I don't know, it doesn't feel nearly as developed as it should, but I'm excited to see where this one goes, especially if we start bringing back this kind of alternate universe version of Wolverine that ended up married to Jean Grey and having a kid. So this could be really interesting. Another book that could be really interesting for Marvel is Daredevil number 603, which continues the Mayor Murdock arc. So Wilson Fisk is still in the hospital, the Hand is still running New York, or kind of trying to take it over, and Daredevil and Matt Murdock are kind of at odds at exactly what's going to be happening and how things are going to be moving forward. So given the Mayor Fisk arc and exactly what's going on inside this whole Marvel continuity, I'm excited to see where this one goes. It's the first time I've really been following along with the Daredevil run, and I'm pleasantly surprised with exactly what I'm finding. Jumping over to independent titles, we can talk about The Realm number 6, which is continuing this kind of magical crossover storyline. We've had a really long exposure to magic inside this story, and it's really caused a lot of chaos and confusion amongst the people of the United States in particular. So it's a story that I was really following along with earlier, but I just haven't quite had the budget to pick it up. However, I have been picking up Killer Be Killed number 19, and this issue is going to be continuing on and concluding the 4th story arc before we jump into the next iteration of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' story. So overall, it has been a really fun ride, as well as Descender number 30, which is a book that I really loved. Jeff Lemire and Dustin Ewan have done a fantastic job with this storyline, and it's a book that I sing the praises of every single chance that I get, and it's been one of my favorites ever since I picked up issue number 1. If you have the opportunity to grab Descender, go start at issue number 1. Go grab that first trade paperback, and then catch up to see exactly where we're at. It's not going to be lasting much longer, so it's one that I personally recommend to every one of you guys. As we get down to the last of the ongoing series, we can talk about No Justice. Justice League No Justice number 4 comes out, so this is going to be the 4th installment and the final one before we jump into the brand new Justice League story. So with everything that's going on inside the storylines from No Justice, with all of these things regarding the Omega Titans, not even focusing on the Source Wall and exactly what's happening with that, it's just one of those encounters where this giant grand spectacle is so engulfing, it just happens to be really fun. It's not necessarily the most clear or concise plotline. There's so many different caveats that are going along with it, but I just can't help but enjoy myself. The only thing that really kind of dragged me down for issue number 3 was Rosmo's art compared to the phenomenal nature of the first 2 issues from Francis Manapul. So with issue number 4, let's see if we can get kind of a return to this overall storyline and continue to kick off what seems to be a really interesting take on the Justice League and the DCU as a whole. So if we're talking about universe-shaping storylines, we need to talk about Marvel 2-in-1 number 6. We saw the Human Torch thing, and then eventually infamous Iron Man get pulled into this alternate universe, and now they're kind of dealing with this conflict where Victor Von Doom's version of Galactus, a Galactus mind controlled by Doom, is about to consume the Earth. And you've got the Human Torch, the Thing, and they're all fighting off these Doombot Silver Surfer kind of things. And it's easy to forget just how fucking cool this idea was. Marvel 2-in-1 number 6 is a book that you just can't miss. Another book you just can't miss, though, is Amazing Spider-Man number 800, so this is getting to the conclusion. This is kind of coming to the crescendo of the whole Red Goblin saga. So the Red Goblin has been one of the most refreshing takes on Norman Osborn in quite some time, and I'm really excited to see how this kind of concludes. We've already seen some people saying great things about Amazing Spider-Man 801 as they've kind of seen the preview of Dan Slott's final issue, but this, 800, this is the big crescendo moment for this storyline, and I can't wait to see if Dan Slott sticks the landing before he leaves. Another book that I'm looking to stick the landing is Doomsday Clock number 5. So Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, they are going to do some serious work on this storyline and this series. They really need to just to justify this whole once every 2-month kind of release schedule. So while Doomsday Clock has been a really interesting introspective into this whole relationship between the Watchmen and the DC Universe, it's got a few things that it suffers from, but I can get into that in something completely different. Doomsday Clock number 5 is easily one of the most anticipated books coming out this week, and you can all understand why. A book that I am anticipating, though, is X-Men Red Annual number 1, which deals with Jean Grey between Phoenix Resurrection and X-Men Red number 1, and where those kind of stories combine. So I'm excited to see exactly what she did as she kind of renewed her exposure to the world, what she found out, exactly what's happened to a lot of the people that she knew, she loved, and she cared about since she died. So there's a lot of interesting things and a lot of interesting catch-up moments that we're going to probably see in this issue, which are going to help tie up a lot of loose ends when it comes to Jean Grey's storyline. Heading over to Valiant, we get Harbinger Wars 2, number 1. So this is going to be dealing with a big crossover of a lot of different characters inside the Harbinger Wars storyline. So if you really like the Valiant universe, this is a great place for you to jump in and see exactly what's going on with Harbinger Wars. It might not necessarily be the book for me, but I'm going to check it out to see exactly what I'm dealing with. The premise seems interesting, but Valiant doesn't necessarily have me as far as its entire universe. But I do like X-O Manowar, so I'm probably going to check it out anyway. Over at Marvel, we continue with Infinity Countdown, and Captain Marvel number 1 comes out, so we get to deal with the Reality Stone and the whole grasp that Carol Danvers has on this. She found the Reality Stone for the 616 universe in another universe itself, held onto by Thanos. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be dealing with this, and there's a lot of things that are going on. It seems like they're setting up Infinity Countdown to go into Infinity Wars, and this giant character of Infinity, and there's so much spectacle that's going to be happening that wraps around the Infinity Stones. It's a really central piece to what seems to be Marvel's marketing campaign moving forward for the next 6 months, if not beyond that. So Infinity Countdown, it tends to be a relatively important book, even though I have kind of lost a little bit of interest. It doesn't necessarily have me the way that it did at the beginning, just because I know how long and drawn out it's going to be. In order to get the complete story, it feels like you're going to need an omnibus, which isn't going to come out until like December anyway. So proceed with caution, guys. We're not necessarily sure exactly what's going on or whether it's going to be worth your money. Back over on independent books, we've got a brand new number 1 in Blackwood number 1 from Dark Horse, and this is about mishaps at a magical university. So a bunch of college-age kids that are looking to study the arcane come into contact with a variety of different things that cause a lot of chaos. I will have to say that if you're looking for an adult Harry Potter comic book, this could be something kind of cool. I'm going to flip through it and see exactly what's going on, but it's one that I'm keeping an eye on, so that way I think you guys should too. Also, another independent book, let's talk about The Last Siege number 1, which is going to be well, I forgot what it's already telling. There's so many comic books coming out this week that I forgot what it is, but dude on the front of the cover, he's kind of bloody and he's got a katana, so it's a book that I gotta check out just because of the visuals. And that's half the job of the cover, to get me to connect with the comic book and at least give it a chance. So I'm making you aware of it. You guys, your mileage might vary. Then we get to talk about the DC Hanna-Barbera crossovers. So there's a whole bunch of new #1s coming out with these specific crossovers that are dealing with like Aquaman and Jabberjaw, Black Lightning and Hong Kong Phooey #1. You've got Flash and Speed Buggy, which are crossing over. And then, of course, you have Super Sons and Dynomutt. These might not exactly be the new #1s that you're looking for from DC, but you have to admit that the concept for these character crossovers is just really fun and entertaining. So if you're looking for something a little bit less on the serious side, and you're looking for something with a bit more family and fun in it, I can't help but recommend taking a look at these simply because they're really interesting and fun concepts. Super Sons and Dynomutt is a book that I'm definitely going to be taking a look at because it at least looks to be relatively nonsensical, especially when you've got like Blue Falcon in there. It just looks crazy. So it's one of those things where if you're looking for family fun, this is going to be your area to check out. Also at DC, we have the Prelude to the Wedding, and we're dealing with Robin versus Ra's al Ghul. So he's got to take on his grandfather. He's got to kind of keep him from causing any kind of chaos dealing with the wedding of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. I'm not necessarily sure if this is the role for Robin, but this is the one that he's been dealt. There's going to be a lot of these that are coming out, all individuals dealing with different characters and how they're going to come into conflict with certain members of the Bat family or the kind of circle of people around the Bat family. So this is just the first one in a long line before we get to Batman #50, and it's one that I'm going to take a look at. It might not necessarily be something that I collect, but I know a lot of you people that want to be completionists regarding Batman and the Batman surrounding stories for the wedding. You're going to be checking this one out and probably bringing it home. And then to finish things up, we need to talk about Man of Steel #1. Brian Michael Bendis has had two different stories come out. One in Action Comics #1000, where we saw him immediately try and retcon the history of Krypton itself and how it was destroyed, injecting Ragnar Zol, or whatever the hell his name is, into the history and creating a relationship with Jor-El that is possibly going to change the entire dynamic of how Superman understands his father as well as the Kryptonian race. And then when we go to the other one, which is kind of similar to the Action Comics style that he's going to be bringing in DC Nation #0, this is kind of like Clark Kent dealing with being Clark Kent, hiding the fact that he's Superman, trying to throw back to a little bit more classic style where he's not necessarily as confident as he was and kind of getting him back to a relatively bumbling roots area. So both of these haven't necessarily impressed me too terribly much, and Man of Steel #1 is going to be our first look at this 6-part miniseries that's going to be kicking off the storyline that Brian Michael Bendis is intent on telling. One thing that we get out of this is that in recent solicitations for DC, we have actually seen Peter J. Tomasi specify that the events of his brand new comic book coming out in August take place before the events of Man of Steel. So this is a separation. This is going to be two distinct generations of Superman stories that are going to be happening. What came before Bendis and what came after Bendis. And this, Man of Steel #1, is one of the most important comic books coming out this month and possibly over the next few months because it gives you the best indication of exactly what kind of Superman story you're going to be reading. Is it something that you're going to love and really emotionally attach yourself to, kind of like what we got for Peter J. Tomasi inside the Superman storylines? Is it going to be a throwback to this kind of retro style of action that we've gotten from Dan Jurgens inside Action Comics? Or is it going to be something completely different and possibly not nearly as entertaining? Or possibly even more so? We still don't necessarily know enough about Man of Steel and Brian Michael Bendis' vision for Superman. But one thing's for sure, this is your best first chance to get the impressions. So, I think Man of Steel #1 is a must-buy for everybody out there, regardless of whether you're a Superman fan or not. It is the future of a character, and it's the first indication of exactly where that future is going to go. So I want to know what you guys think, too, what you guys are going to be picking up, and whether I should be picking up something different as well. So hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.